Less than 2 years ago, Amflow launched a bike that completely transformed the e-bike category. Well, it looks like Amflow's done it again, because the new Amflow PX Carbon Pro delivers 1500 watts of peak power and up to 150 newton meters of torque. And even with proper DH case and tires, bigger brakes, and a light, it's still under 22 kilos. And key to the high power output and low overall weight is the new Avinox M2S motor and custom 700 watt-hour battery. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. 700 watt-hour battery, you're gonna burn through that in a heartbeat? Well, I thought exactly the same thing. But in reality, you're only ever tapping into the full potential of the motor in small, sharp bursts, so the range is actually still pretty good. In that respect, having 1500 watts of peak power is a bit like having an ace up your sleeve for when you really need it. Cheating? You bet. But then some people think eating's cheating, so it really depends on your perspective. What it allows you to do is tap the bike out at the 25 kilometers per hour assist limit when you're going uphill. So if you're shuttling, it makes turnaround times faster, and the extra power and torque also allows riders to tackle insanely steep climbs. But with one key caveat, you gotta have the skills to control the bike. And that's definitely one for the trials riders out there. And that's one of the reasons why I think the motor is so quiet. Yes, Avinox has increased the efficiency and reduced the potential to rattle, but I think because the motor's working at 50% capacity most of the time, it's only really just ticking over. And it's not until you start working really hard that the motor noise becomes obvious, but you'll also be breathing really hard, so you'll have other things to worry about. And when I say it's working at half capacity, it's literally got double the power output of the Bosch CX motor, which is impressive for such a compact system that weighs just over 2.6 kilos. And what's really interesting is that I rode a Bosch CX race motor in Finale just a couple of weeks ago, and even though it's got half the power, it was actually harder to control. And I think that comes down to the Avinox software and the speed sensor, because it's got 84 pickup points. It's just feeding more accurate speed data into the head unit. But I don't want this first ride to turn into another video about the new Avinox M2S motor, because what Amflow has done with the new bike is equally as impressive. The geometry, frame stiffness, layout, adjustments, wheel sizes and specs have all been updated. And what may come as a surprise to a lot of people that were expecting Amflow to drop a longer travel enduro bike is that the new PX Carbon Pro has exactly the same travel as the old bike. So it's still got 160mm travel fork up front and 150mm in the rear, just like the PL Carbon. But that's not to say that both bikes feel the same. The tune on the Fox Float-X shock on this bike gives it a completely different feel to the previous bike. And while Amflow's sticking to its just a trail bike marketing strategy, I kind of think that's underselling this bike. And that's because you can ride the PX Carbon Pro really hard. And that's in part due to the updated geometry. The seat tubes are shorter on all frame sizes, and you now have plus or minus 0.5 or 1 degree headset cups that just drop in. There's BB and head angle adjustment on the shock eyelet, and flip chips in the chainstay pivots correct the geometry for both 29 or 27.5 inch wheels. Stock geometry on the Amflow PX means you're starting with a 64 degree head angle, a 77 degree seat tube angle, a 343mm BB height, and 438 or 451mm chainstays, depending on the wheel size and the position of the chainstay flip chips. Reach on the size L is 480mm. And with the shorter seat tubes and longer dropper posts on all frame sizes, upsizing on the Amflow is now easier than ever. I've actually got the MX bike here, so 29-inch front, 27.5 on the rear, but I'm running the chainstay flip chips in the 29er setting just to make the chainstays longer, because not only does that make the bike feel more stable, it makes it way less prone to looping out on steep climbs. Yes, the bike doesn't feel as dynamic with the longer chainstays, but I think it's faster both up and downhill like this. In fact, the riding position and the geometry feel very similar to the PL Carbon that I modified with a 27.5-inch rear wheel, and not correcting the geometry for the smaller rear wheel. I will say that I think Amflow's recommended shock pressures are still a little bit off. I'm 85 kilos and I'm running 200 PSI in the Fox Float-X shock, which is higher than they recommend, but I'm still running like 30% sag, and I get full travel regularly on every ride. Amflow's recommended pressure for my body weight is around like 180 PSI, which is considerably less. And while that gives you like more sag, It means that your BB height runs a lot lower and the bike is really plush, but you're going to be clipping pedals everywhere. In terms of spec, Amflow's nailed it. The Gravity case and Schwalbe tyres are a big improvement, and the new Magura Gustav brakes with proper 203mm rotors feel really good. But they've also got really good modulation, so you can feather traction, and they've been 100% consistent too, which is more than I can say about a lot of brakes. Amflow has also increased the stiffness of the stem and the carbon wheels, and combined with the changes it's made to the frame stiffness, the bike feels altogether more solid without feeling too harsh. In fact, compared to the PL Pro, this bike offers the kind of ride quality that most hardcore riders would want straight out of the box. It's also really interesting that the bike now comes with a massive 38-tooth chainring, and I suppose that's to go with the massive 1500 watt power output, but you could argue that with all that power, you could have a more compact drivetrain because you don't need the full 10 52-tooth spread of gears at the rear, and that would also give you more clearance for the rear derailleur, especially when you're running the 27.5-inch rear wheel. And another downside of the larger chainring is that you have way less ground clearance. And with the Avinox motor being so compact, you're probably going to hit the chainring before you hit the protective cover on the motor. So that's another one for the trials riders amongst us. I also like the fact that Amflow's stuck with the 36 fork. And while I've said the 38 feels better on some bikes, like on the Megamo Reason, this bike still feels really solid and composed and stiff enough with the 36, so I don't think it really needs the 38. Will I try it with a 38? Most definitely, because Fox is now offering the 38 with 160mm travel, so it'll bolt straight into this bike. I'm not sure it needs it though, because I think the bike's got this kind of nice feel where it's got a little bit of flex, but not too much. So it's really precise for steering and direction changes, but the bike's not harsh, and that's a combination of the improved suspension performance and just the overall balance of stiffness. And I gotta say, DH case and tires, every e-bike should come with those as standard. So it's got more power, more torque, the frame's stiffer, the specification's better, it's got the right tires, it's got great brakes, it's got a shorter seat tube, it's got increased stiffness in the frame. It's got everything everyone asked for and more. But the real question is a 700 watt-hour battery enough? With the increased efficiency in the motor and the battery, I think it is, but only just. But there's gonna be riders out there that are gonna want more, even with the fast charging. Yes, Amflow has a range extender, but it's basically a 600 watt-hour battery that bolts on top of the down tube, which kind of defeats the purpose of having that really slender down tube in the first place. So let me know in the comments if you think a 700 watt-hour battery is enough on a bike with 1500 watts of peak power. In fact, that's not the only question, because if the Amflow PX has got 1500 watts of peak power, does that make every other e-bike with 750 watts a mid-powered e-bike? I'll let you decide. Oh, I almost forgot. This isn't a review, it's just basically me going through some of the key features and a few things that I've noticed about the bike, having had a couple of rides on it, so we'll follow it up with a range test and a full review.